Welcome back to the Cross Border Interview Podcast. My name is Christopher Brown, and today we are back in the ballot box with another great candidate in the 44th general election. She is running for the New Democratic Party here in Calgary, Calgary Heritage to be more specific. Kathleen Johnson. Kathleen, thank you so much for doing this. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So Kathleen, I start off all my interviews the exact same way, so you're no exception. Where's your sense of duty to serve come from?
I think it comes from my parents. My parents were West Indian immigrants. They were part of the first few West Indian families to come to Calgary, and they were always active in the community. My dad was the first police officer of color on the Calgary Police Force. And my mom was very instrumental in starting the Calgary chapter of Congress of Black Women, which is now defunct, but they were always involved in activities in the community, usually stemming from their island. They always volunteered on campaigns. I remember like licking envelopes and just doing different things when I was a kid with my parents on campaigns. So yeah, politics was always a topic in our house. So it wasn't always, it wasn't anything that my parents shied away from or said, oh, you can't talk about politics. Like it was like a regular topic.
Was it ever mentioned that someone like yourself or maybe your father or your mother might get into elected politics? Or are you the sort of the odd man out here and you're the first person in your family to put your name forward on the ballot?
My father has been asked to run before, but I'm the first person to put my name on a ballot.
So what made you do that? What made you think that in 2021 you were going to put your name on the ballot, not only for Calgary Heritage, but also for the New Democratic Party?
Well, I was called and asked to do it, and somebody had put my name forward in the party, and I thought about it. I did sleep on it. And then I said yes, because I thought what an experience it will be, even if I don't win. And I felt that I wanted to have a voice because I feel like Canada is changing. It has changed, but that certain people, especially people in marginalized groups, are not represented.
And how do you envision yourself being that candidate who will represent the marginalized communities that you've talked about there?
Well, I'm very fascinated by intersectionality, and how people are how they identify in so many different ways, with so many different groups. For instance, like I have 3 of my 5 children are in the LGBTQ community in different ways, but they are also Black. My daughter is also female, to add to that. So I'm just fascinated with how will the world deal with them? What place will they find in the work world, in political landscapes? How is that going to be for them? So I'm really interested in that. So I thought, it's not for a lot of things that you do are not for right now. They're not for the moment, but they might be for the next generation or the next generation.
Now, I am a follower of you on Twitter, and if I'm not mistaken, on Facebook as well. If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but one of your children just turned the age of 18. And they will be voting for potentially you because it is a secret ballot. But how honored are you to have one of your children be able to vote for their mother their first time out?
It just hit me, and I was like, wow. I just think it's such an honor for her to be able to do that. Hopefully for me, it is her choice, but for the first time that she's ever voted. So yeah, I just thought that's crazy. That's a full circle moment if I ever saw one.
Now, I want to know for a second. You could have chosen Paul. You should have could have chosen many different parties, but you chose the New Democratic Party that best represents your values, if I'm not mistaken. What does the NDP stand for, in your own words, in your own opinion?
Um, they seem to be, in my opinion, the only party that is really for regular people. Um, I have found a lot of acceptance in the party and just people welcoming me with open arms. I'm fairly new to the party, but I've studied the platform for a while. I followed Jagmeet for a long time. I was inspired by Jack Layton. And I just find that there's no elitism. There's not a sense of people that are only familiar with a certain kind of class, if you will. I mean, we still have classes in this society that maybe not be as distinct, but we still have a working class poor, a middle class, a lower middle class, an upper middle class, a rich, an ultra rich. And I just find that the other two parties are more interested in serving the upper echelon demographics of society rather than the average person.
Um, any candidate should be outdoor knocking during this election. I know with COVID-19, it is a different atmosphere and a different change of pace compared to previous elections, but I have seen you outdoor knocking. What are you hearing from the people of Calgary Heritage when you're door knocking, when you're talking to them, and what are the issues that they're talking to you about?
They're talking to me about student loans. Uh, they're talking to me about getting their job back after being cut from the oil industry. Um, they're talking to me about taxes, but a lot of concern about how are we going to get this province back on its feet. Things were kind of tough before COVID, and COVID has just exacerbated that. So Albertans are wondering, what is the future? What is my future? Because our main resource is not too popular nowadays. And what does that look like going into the future? So we talk about diversifying in the diversification in the economy as far as industry. And how are you going to pay for all of these people that have lost their job because of COVID, or because of ups and downs in the oil industry? How are you going to pay for this? That's the main concern. Is okay. I hear that a lot. The NDP have a lot of great programs, but how are you going to pay for it? And so that's the kind of conversation that we're having at the doors.
Are people engaged? When I've talked to different candidates from different political parties, and I know we are going through a municipal election here in Calgary as well, across the province, but one thing I hear over and over again is the apathy. People are sort of tired of elections and they just want politicians to get back to work. Are you hearing about the apathy, or are people actually interested in hearing what you have to say?
A mix of both, to be honest with you. I do knock on some doors and they say, I ask them, is there any one issue that you're concerned about? And they, might say, no, not really. To say they have no worries, probably not. Maybe they just don't want to tell me that. But for the most part, people are engaged. People are concerned. People have things that they want to talk about.
Well, that's awesome. I want to talk about some of the issues that you talked about: student loans, jobs, getting jobs back, COVID-19, taxes, and getting the province back on its feet. Um, I'll start with COVID-19 because this is the elephant in the room, and it is the biggest issue that is going to face the next government, all 338 MPs once elected. As the next MP for Calgary Heritage, how will you fight for everyone and not just the wealthy, those who might not have stuff, who might not have it, who are one paycheck away from potentially losing their job? How do you envision yourself fighting for everyone to get a fair shot at recovery?
Well, one of the only ways to do that, and Jagmeet Singh has said this on the campaign trail, is to tax the ultra rich 1%. And that is not, I mean, a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, is it me? Is it going to be me? These are people that are millionaires, billionaires, not people making 100, 200,000, 200, 3, even 3, 4, or 500,000. So that is one of the major ways for us to capture that income, and so that we capture that those funds so that we can redistribute them. I really believe in a redistribution. There's companies that made a lot of money during this pandemic. You know, I don't think anybody at Uber Eats is crying, or anybody at Amazon. So these are companies that they can be incentivized to put money back into the community.
How would you like to see that happen? Because you can tax the ultra rich, the millionaires and the billionaires, which I still can't believe there are billionaires in this world, but we are living in a strange society. 1% seems like a drop in the bucket compared to what we potentially will need. Is there, or would you be in favor, and this is just me asking the questions and playing devil's advocate here, of increasing that 1% to potentially 2%? Because I don't believe, and this is my own personal opinion here, but if you're a billionaire, you just need to start paying your money. If your tax rate is the same as a secretary, no. Would you be willing to potentially increase that even a little bit?
Me personally, yes, it's not in the platform formally, but for me personally, 1% is a good start. 1% of $1 billion is a lot. But yes, I think we definitely need to just take a look at the whole situation, because as we know as well, $15 an hour doesn't cut it anymore. If it kept pace with inflation, it would more be like $20, $22 an hour.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of restructuring that needs to be done in terms of how people, in terms of the tax structure, and also in terms of, we need to look at, you know, everybody has talked about a basic income, that those types of measures might need to be necessary going forward.
Now, I want to I want to talk a little bit about the oil industry, because you did talk about diversification in that introduction about what you're hearing at the doors. I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because that's my role as the person who is hosting the show. And for the listeners, they want to know what your thoughts are. There is a persona, there is a assumption that the NDP is anti-oil. That is, if you elect an NDP MP, you will keep the oil in the ground, or natural resources won't go far. I want you to talk to the people who are listening right now and tell your position on the oil and gas industry, but also how you view it today.
Well, you know, Jagmeet has made no bones about oil and how it affects Indigenous people and how it affects our environment. And as an Albertan, as a born and raised Albertan, I do understand that it is the lifeblood of our province. And even though I'm not running provincially, I know that in the nation, if oil is down, it affects the whole entire country. It is a big part of our GDP. And so I do believe that there are industries that have been trying to get in a more of a foothold into Alberta. And most namely is the film industry. I worked in that industry for many years. And when Curry Barracks was coming up for sale many years ago, the movie industry said, hey, let's build a big sound stage there. And you know, kind of piggyback on the success of Vancouver and Toronto, the whole Hollywood North concept. And we could have a nice booming secondary industry here. They got shut out, and they have been shut out for many, many years in trying to get a foothold in. So even tech or other professions, we've heard from other trades that have said, there's just no room. There's no room for us. So I think we have to look beyond certain things. Actually, somebody at the door said, "Hey, isn't Alberta the sunniest province in the country and one of the sunniest places in North America? What about solar? Why are we not taking advantage of that sunshine and building a solar industry?" So there's people with some different ideas out there, and I think we need to actually talk to the people and say, "Hey, what are your ideas?" Calgary Heritage has some of the most affluent neighborhoods in the city in this riding. And people are intelligent. They're engaged, as I mentioned before. They're not apathetic at all, and they have a lot of ideas. So we need to actually open the conversation with other industry, with the people, and come up with a plan to diversify.
I want to talk about the diverse opinions that make up this great country. Um, if elected on September 20th, you will be representing a riding that has never sent an NDP MP to Ottawa. You will be the first. Talk to the people of Calgary Heritage who are thinking about voting for you, who may vote for you, or who are looking at all their options before going into the ballot box. How will you guarantee to the people of Calgary Heritage that you will represent everyone and not just the people who vote for you?
Well, I think that's because Calgary's in my heart. It's my hometown. And I wouldn't have it any other way but to represent everyone. And like I said, I was attracted to this party because it's the party of, in my opinion, it's the party of the people. I know there's a party named the People's Party, but I really feel like it's the NDP that is that. And yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think the richness of the voices that we have in my writing, that applies to people from all different incomes, all different backgrounds, all different occupations. That's what makes Calgary such a wonderful place to live, because it does have that mosaic quality to it, and that's what I love about Canada. So I would be very honored to represent everyone equally in terms of their voice, and having somebody in Parliament that really is concerned about people, and that people would actually see me. They would actually be able to have conversations with me. I'm really, really big into talking. As you can see, I'm a talker. So I know a lot of people that have never met the incumbent, never seen him. And I don't want to be that kind of MP. I want people to know that you'll see me. You'll see me. I'll be around.
I want to talk about the opinion still, because um, an MP's job is to represent their constituents to the best of their ability. You go ask 100 people on any issue, you will get 100 different opinions. How do you envision yourself representing your constituents when your constituents want one thing, but your morals and your values want something else? How do you balance that? How would you balance that in that situation?
Well, I'm not too sure how morally different or divergent I would be with the constituents. It would have to be a very polarizing issue.
So I apologize to interrupt here, but I want to give clarification on this one, because I try to ask it to everyone and I try to get their opinion on this. So hypothetically, if in the NDP platform, your leader Jagmeet Singh has called for the removal of oil and gas subsidies to businesses in the oil and gas sector. There are people in your riding who work in the oil and gas industry. While you would be proposed to vote on that issue, the people of your riding may not technically want you to vote against removing those subsidies. So How do you balance that? And that's where I was getting at. It may not be a moral issue, but it may be a party over constituents issue. Or would you be more in the, I'm here to represent your constituents and this is how I would vote? If that makes sense.
Well, I don't think it's like a situation where I don't think nothing is really ever a situation where you can't find some middle ground. And I always find that going down the middle is the best route. So as far as something like removing a subsidy, maybe that wouldn't really suit the situation. And it would probably not be something that a lot of my constituents would want. So I would have to listen to what their ideas are and maybe reducing the subsidy, but not taking it away. I tend to like to go down the middle because I think if everybody is sort of satisfied on both sides, you probably have a pretty good deal. But yeah, I mean, removing the subsidies, it might not, like you're saying, it might not be what the constituents in my riding are would really be hoping for. And I'm not really sure about anybody's position on that at the moment, because even from Aaron O'Toole, I've been hearing a lot of middle of the road kind of talk. So I think a lot of people are trying to walk that line right now.
I just want to do a quick plug here before we continue on for anyone who's tuning in and for those who are listening. We are sitting down right now with Calgary Heritage NDP candidate Kathleen Johnson. She is running in the September 20th election. So please, 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 if you haven't, make sure you get out and vote. Kathleen, I want to continue on the line of subjecting as the next MP. Come September 20th, you are elected. You are elected the next MP for Calgary Heritage. Priority number one for you on September 21st is what?
Priority number one is before I get on that plane and go to Parliament, is to actually ask people, what are you concerned about? What do you want me to take to Ottawa? What is the priority for this riding? And I think the only thing you can do is listen and see how you can come up with a plan that where people feel heard and where people feel represented. That's your job as an MP, is to be representative of your constituency. So how would I do that is to actually, before I really sink my teeth into the job, is to actually have a pulse on what my constituents are concerned about.
I talk to people across this riding. I talk to people across this country, especially in Western Canada. One thing I hear over and over again is you elect an MP, especially in Western Canada, they go off to Ottawa. You do not see them until the next election. You do not see them or hear from them until election time, when they knock on your door and, oh, there must be an election because he wants my vote or she wants my vote. How do you plan on not being that MP? How are you planning to be engaging with your constituents, being the MP that people can get a hold of and talk to?
Well, I mean, I won't be showing up at the dinner table, but I mean, if people want to feed me, that's fine.
Invitation's always open, Kathleen. Invitation is always open for you to
if you want to have me over for dinner, I'll be there. But short of that, calling, keeping in touch in terms of polling, having town halls virtually. I still have kids here, and I still have elderly father and a brother and sister and cousins and everybody here. So I'll be here. And when I do come into town, I will be touching base with my constituents. That is a really big thing for me, because I don't want to be just that person showing up at the door at election time and people will be like, excuse me, I haven't heard from you in a little while.
It is one of the most furious things that I ever have in elections, especially when it comes to federal elections, even provincial sometimes, is when politicians just fly away and they take our votes for granted. So I appreciate you being honest and saying that, hey, if someone invites you to dinner, you would be there if they're in your riding. I want to talk about one last thing before we start wrapping up here, Kathleen, and that is your campaign. We are my phone and my Apple Watch just died, but if I'm not mistaken, we are less than 2 weeks away, or just over 2 weeks away, to Election Day. We are releasing this. This is Monday, and Monday the 20th is coming quickly.
Yes.
How can people get involved? How can people learn more about you? While we've tried to ask you as many questions as possible in a half hour, sometimes I miss a question and your constituents might want an answer. How can people get involved, help out, but also contact you and learn more?
Well, I'm on Facebook at Kathleen Johnson, and you can. I've had people already DM me about certain things, about getting involved or about a particular issue. I'm also on Instagram as KMJ Heritage, and you can also DM me there. I'm on Twitter as Kathleen NDP, and you can private message me there. So if you want to get involved in terms of making phone calls, knocking on the doors, we need people still to do those things. So you can always contact me on any of those platforms and see how you can get involved.
For my listeners and to my viewers, the links to Kathleen's Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and if I'm not mistaken, your website that is put on by the federal party. I could be wrong, but I think there's a website as well. Or there might be a donation button to donate to the campaign.
There's a donation button, yes.
There you go. Will be in the show notes. So if you live in Calgary Heritage and are looking at all the candidates, the link to her Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and her, well, I would say website, but that's the donation. Those three will be in the show notes. Please, 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 please. I am beating a dead horse here, people, but I'm going to say this over and over again until September 20th. Get out, get educated, and vote. Before I do wrap up, I have one last question for you, Kathleen, and I want you to look at the camera and directly to the camera, because this is the question for the listeners and to the viewers. Why should you be the next MP for the riding of Calgary Heritage? Whenever you're ready, take it away.
Yes, my name is Kathleen Johnson, and I should be the next MP for the riding of Calgary Heritage because I was born and raised in South Calgary. I have a great identity with this side of the city and with this community, with this province. I love Canada. I'm a very patriotic Canadian. My parents came here for a better life, and as far as I'm concerned, they achieved their goal because I have a great life. I'm raising my kids here, and this is a community that I love. I love. I live in the community of Haysboro, and the people here have always been wonderful to me. And you will see me, and I will hear you. I am very interested in engaging with my constituents, and that will be probably the signature of my serving you, is that you will be able to reach me and I will be available.
Thank you so much for that. Again, to my listeners and to my viewers, I'm going to say this one last time for those who did not listen to me. The last many times I've said this, democracy only happens when people get involved. People like Kathleen are putting their names forward for many parties. People like Kathleen are doing this for the right reason. Now it's our turn. We have the names on the ballot. It is our turn to get out, get educated, and learn about the candidates. If there's a question you want asked, reach out to Kathleen. Reach out to the candidates in your riding. But of all things I want to impress here, get out and vote. Vote, 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 vote. You do not get to complain at the end of the day if you do not vote. I do not want to see you on Twitter complaining that something happened and then find out you didn't vote. So learn, educate yourself, and vote. Kathleen, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This has been an honor and a pleasure, and I wish you all the best on September 20th. We need more people like you in elected politics and putting their name on the ballot. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to sit with you.
For my listeners, once again, this is the Cross Border Interview Podcast. We will be back Thursday night after the federal election leaders debate. So please tune in live when we will be having a roundtable discussion with political observers from the Liberal Party, from the NDP, from the Greens, from the Conservatives, and myself. So please tune into that. For everyone else, have yourself an excellent